Hello and welcome to our session of Take My Revolution, which is a game that is very much Revolutionary Girl Utna inspired. It's very much that. Years ago, there was a source book for Utna that came out for Big Eyes Small Mouth, but that was as close as we've ever gotten to that. But this is from Sword Queen Games. Jamila has done an amazing job. But this is actually how I first saw Jamila's games. Was I found this and I was super excited, it is lovely. If you're watching this, this is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. Gauntlet Hangouts is an online gaming community club, however you want to put it, that has a specially built calendar. We have a Patreon that supports that, and people signing up for that can get RSVP access, a little early sign up for the calendar. And that's the main focus of us. We also have podcasts and the zine and things like that. But for me, it's all about the gaming and all about the calendar because that's what I love and adore. My name is Lowell, pronouns he, him. We have four great players who, when we go to character introductions, can introduce themselves with their pronouns as well. What I'm going to start with is our cats, which kind of walks through what we're going to be doing today in terms of play. And we'll kind of set this up. So the concept is that all of our characters are what are called sword blooms. They have come to this strange private academy. They've been kind of called here. Maybe they don't exactly remember how they came here. It's a kind of a mythic, timeless structure. It is very much a game about sort of anime teens that in this. So that's the sort of the level of personality and presentation that is going on in this. Is a kind of a dreamlike place, especially since our characters, while they've arrived here and they've interacted with the normal students, they've also been summoned by something called the World's End. They've been called into this competition to gain the revolution. They've been given spaces in their own private dormitory. They're slightly different. They've seen that there are other people here who are also strange and different and more beautiful and more vivid than the other people in the academy. There are teachers, there are staff members, but they're very much sort of off to the side. We don't necessarily see them unless we need to bring them into play. So our approach today is we'll be doing character building, which is just some basic choices about who our characters are. They are chosen from three different archetypes that we'll come back to in a little bit. Once we have our characters and we've introduced them, we're going to go around in a particular order, and each person is going to choose a game. And these games have titles, and they're actually represented. We've got a bunch of different tabs in our character keeper, and each one has a game, and the game will set some rules. Some of them involve card exchanges, some of them involve coins, but most of them involve questions and possibly choosing other people to bring together on those questions. And there's even a game that you can play when other people are playing that is about questions for your own character. If other people are in a scene, you can figure out and answer those questions. All of that will build up our characters and potentially build up our hand of cards for everyone. And at the end, there will be a showdown for the revolution based on the cards that you have in your hand. And to facilitate that, we're using an online multiplayer card table. We're going to see how that works. My role today, though this is a GM-less game, I'm going to facilitate and manage things today because it's the first time we played this, and I want to make sure that things run smoothly. Our tone is very much dreamlike, suggestive, slightly overwrought because they are teens. Our stakes are both personal and epic. We want to be the one at the end that can take our revolution and make a determination about our future. There is a possibility as we move along that your character may give up on their revolution. And there's a process, there's a mechanic for that. If you think your character has so turned away from their ideals, and they can become a shadow, and that is a dreadful thing. Subject matter: identity, gender, social power, ideals, self-discovery, self-actualization. It is about high school kids, and it is about anime tropes here in a brilliant, overwrought area. So with that in mind, especially because we have anime high school, and there are a lot of difficult themes potentially here. We have several safety tools that are on the table. I've played with all of you before, so you know the basics that we have, but for those of you at home, we have the X card. The X card can be done either in the chat or verbally say, I want to X card something, or you can do this gesture. X card is when you hit problematic or objectionable material, things that feel wildly off tone, any of those things. I may ask you where we need to cut, but we'll retcon or cut as we need to get past that material. The other thing that we have is on the second tab on our character keeper, we have lines and veils. It is a multi sort of checkbox thing. Lines are things we definitely not going to have in the game. Veils are things that will fade to black on if we have those occur in the game. As we're kind of doing character choices and introductions, once that's all done, feel free to put stuff in the lines and veils. And before we actually get to playing, I'll go through what everyone's choices have been on that. The last thing, of course, is we have an open door policy, which means if you need to step away, you are welcome to step away. Don't need to say anything. We hope you'll return, but you can always take a break. We will be playing in our usual structure of character creation. We'll see what our time is. We'll probably do some play. We'll take a break and so on. We'll take multiple breaks if we need to. My target time is 3 hours for this, but we'll see. I honestly don't know, because I haven't done this before, what the play time is going to look like. So we will see. So let me talk about then the game itself. You'll see that we have several tabs here that are the games of play. And these are an animated disagreement, rising tensions in an elevator, conversation over food, a dance, meeting sword to sword, stealing time together. Those are all sort of the basic games. The ones that have a little more change to them are a duel with sword and hearts. Now, any one of these games that we had earlier, they may actually roll into a duel if from those scenes you've decided that we need to actually go and have a formal duel. And there, a duel is ask some questions, has some challenges, and has some cards that are played. At the end, we have Take My Revolution, which is essentially giving up your revolution there. We have what happens through Mir Darkly if you becomes a shadow. And the last tab that we have is the end game, which is the sort of the full play out. You're going to get cards. You can have them in your hand. Twos and jacks are the two sort of special cards there. Twos will cause problems, and jacks will cause interesting changes. Both of them create issues. What's going to happen is when it comes to your turn, when it's your choice to choose a game, you'll choose a game. We'll look at the setup. Often that will involve you choosing one or more other characters, and then we'll work through the process of play on that. We'll discover what it looks like. So that is the basics. So if everyone could also, I'm going to give you a link here. Copy this. Drop in the chat. If everyone could, in yet another tab on your computer, open up this tab, which I put in there, the playingcards.io tab. Okay. And so what you will see is you'll see a deck. It has a recall button. I'll recall if we need to. You'll see that cards placed at the bottom, you can see. They're the ones that you'll be able to see. So, for example, I'm going to take a card, I put it in my thing, and I can see that it's the 5 of clubs. If we go to reveal a card, we just put it on the table, it'll go face down, and then we can click on it, and it will go face up. And there are times we're going to draw back up on cards. The most cards that you can have is 5 at any particular time. And let me see what the draw rule is here again. I'm sorry, I should have written that down on my reference sheet here. I think it's if you have less than 2, but I will, if you have fewer than 2 cards, you're going to draw up to 2. If you have more than 5 cards, you're going to discard down to 5. And we'll reshuffle the discards if we need to. But that's the basics of it. I hope everybody's able to see the deck and see the cards and things like that on the thing. Is everybody cool with that? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you come up with your characters. Characters have a name. They have a faction that they belong to, student council, mystics, and nobodies. There's some details about that in the book. The student council are very much the special ones, and they are the favored ones. They created the student council, and they've got the World's End that has created it, but they make it up. They have political power there. They see the nobodies, one of the other factions, as lesser but maybe useful. They see the mystics, another faction, as perhaps dangerous and foolish. If you're on the student council, the school's in awe of you. And you have a special version of the school uniform, and you have a specific color. So you'll choose a color that represents you. And then, as with all the characters, you're going to choose 3 attractive qualities. And that's the basics, what you need to do to decide your character for the student council. For the nobodies, the World's End barely knows you exist, this force that has drawn you into this conflict, but you've piqued their interest. You admire the student council. Maybe you want to be as strong as they are. You've found out about the mystics. There's some weirdness there, maybe ghost stories, maybe magic. You don't know what's going on. You wear the same school uniform as everyone else, but you maybe have a little touch that defines how your school uniform differs from other people. And you have a specific area of the school that is your sanctuary. And we'll ask about what that says about you. And again, you choose 3 qualities and your name. Lastly, the mystics. You exist outside of time. A long ago time, you died, but no one's ever allowed to really die on the school grounds. No one can ever truly leave. Unlike sad ghosts, you are a ghost that has power and ambition. You can create symbols and objects of power, and you can become wonderful and beautiful, or dark and twisted. The World End fears you, but you're beyond their power, but you're drawn into this game. You enjoy watching the student council and their games. You understand that the nobodies have power. You can go and come and go as you please. You can decide who sees you and who doesn't. You wear a special version of the student uniform, but nothing as obvious as what the student council is. You are an expert at crafting a specific object of magic, a sigil ring, a flower that doesn't decay, a pocket watch. And when we come to you, we'll ask you what it is and why it can't benefit you directly. And again, we choose 3 attractive qualities. And once we're done with that, we'll have people take cards, and then we'll get to play. Any questions about that? Not much mechanical here, which I love. So there we go. So I am going to have us introduce our characters here. You'll notice that there is a listing for coins. Coins are a currency that you'll get throughout the game. And you don't start with coins, but you may get them during the course of play. So I'm actually going to go from the far right to left here and have people introduce their characters. So Daryl, I know you share my love for Utna. So tell us about your character, who they are.
Yeah, so hi, I am Daryl. My pronouns are he, him, and I am playing Tristan Halliday, whose pronouns are also he, him. Tristan is a member of the Student Council who, because he's a member of the Student Council, wears an elegantly tailored uniform of crimson and gold with a high fashion cut. He has platinum hair that is done up in a braid along one side of his head, and his specific color association is crimson. His 3 attractive qualities are that he is reserved, trustworthy, and debonair.
So when people think about the student council, what is the group of people in the school that you are their object of affection, that they're in the Tristan Club?
The people who admire Tristan the most are the people in the fine arts departments. So people who do creative writing, people who do theater, those kinds of focuses on things that are just really all about expressing themselves, which is funny because Tristan is so very reserved, but they sense a deep abiding passion underneath all of that reserve. So that's where all of his fans are.
Excellent, excellent. Let's come to Frankie Blair. Puckett, please tell us about your character.
Hi, I'm Puckett, he, him pronouns. I'll be playing Frankie Blair today, she, her pronouns. She is a nobody with slightly messy hair, slightly chopped hair. Her uniform is always a little outside spec, whether it's a collar that's kind of rumpled or kind of upturned, or she didn't get a button done exactly right, or there's a shirt tail hanging loose beneath the sweater, or she's not even wearing the sweater that she's supposed to be wearing. Her 3 attractive qualities are that she is kind, idealistic, and steadfast, and her sanctuary area is the humanities classroom.
And why is the humanities classroom her sanctuary?
It reminds her of beautiful things that maybe she doesn't get to see a lot anymore. She's learning about art history. She's studying literature. It's things that remind her why it's worth fighting.
And when she received this letter from the world's end, what did she think of that?
She thought it was a joke, like someone was pulling her leg. This couldn't possibly be true or real.
And how has that changed? Like what is the revelation there for her? At what point has she started to think that this might be more serious?
I think she's still a skeptic because everyone else has bought into this. They've drank the Kool-Aid, as it were. And I think that she's looking at it and trying to still figure out whether this is an elaborate practical joke at her expense. I think every nobody has felt like that at some point in high school.
I like that. All right, that gives us a good sense of who you are. Sherry, would you please tell us about your character?
Sure. My character is Elaine Soptic. She is, let's see, one of the mystics. But around school, you would know her as a talented musician. The gossip is that she's a prodigy and famous, but probably no one has heard of her because they don't pay attention to the world of classical music. And essentially, when you see her, you always have the sense that she does definitely wear her skirt long. And it always seems you have the impression that somehow she's managed to style it so it's like the sort of modest evening gowns that musicians wear on the concert stage, is like what she's got on under her school jacket. But it's hard to break down why wool and crisp cotton would flow that way, but they seem to on her. Um, Her item crafting is that she can make for a person a scrap of music that will remind them of their strength. So if they can hear it or summon it back up, they will have that strength. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, and 3 attractive qualities?
Yeah, uncanny, resourceful, and bookish.
When you say uncanny, what does that mean?
That means she shows up when you need her. That means she just happens to be there just after something has happened. She wasn't in the situation, but she's standing right outside of it. That sort of thing. Does that seem reasonable?
Sure. And do you imagine, since you're the person who's the only mystics, do you imagine that the mystics do they interact with one another, or are they very much singular figures?
I think that one of the things is that most of them can't see each other. And that's what keeps them from, how do you say, being as powerful as they might be. If that, like,
Yeah.
if you were to speak about another mystic, she wouldn't know who you were talking about.
Okay.
Unless
like
she
that.
remembered them when they were alive.
Excellent. That will bring us to Stephen. Stephen, tell us about your character.
Okay, I'm playing Artemis Winters, she, her pronouns on the student council. Her uniform, it's very precisely cut. It is the exactly regulation with gray trimming. So instead of looking like a school uniform, it looks like it's almost a military uniform. Like this is the ROTC of the academy. And I mean, and she also has steel gray hair, which is like pulled back in a tight ponytail. So her qualities are beautiful, severe, and magnetic. And sort of her followers tend to be like the prefects, the people who keep the student body in order.
And the steel gray of your hair, does it give you an impression of age, or is it more just an unusual severity?
Yeah, it's an unusual severity. It doesn't give the impression of age. It's darker than hair that would normally go gray with age. I mean, it gives the impression of like abnormal anime color hair, not aged hair.
Absolutely. All right. So how we're going to start is this: if you'll go to the card table tab, and if each of you will draw and pull into your area, the cards only visible to you, pull in 3 cards into that area for each of you.
This is okay.
Is it working for you?
I don't know. It looks like people are putting cards into my area. Does that make any sense?
Are
And
they
then,
face down?
there's only
I'm
one card.
I'm seeing something really similar with it. Where some cards are flipping over and other cards aren't.
Yeah, I'm seeing 4 cards face up, and I drew 3 cards into my area. So I'm seeing other players' cards, and I don't know which ones are mine.
Okay, let me recall here. I'm going to recall all.
There's still a card in my area.
There are no cards in mine. Well, now there is one.
I wish this would work.
So it's almost like our cards visible here, are only visible to you, are on top of each other, maybe?
Yeah.
This is irritating. Let me see here. Let me think what the best way to handle this is. Give me 1 second here. Let's see if I can do this with something else. Nope, that's not going to work. I wonder if I'm going to have to go to Roll for Your Party. Okay. All right. So this is not working like I hoped it would. Are the cards still in people's areas here on the thing?
I don't see any in my thing where it says cards are placed here
Okay.
visible only to you.
Sherry,
Mine is clear.
Sherry, do me a favor and draw 3 cards down into the only visible to your thing.
Okay. Now it's acting differently. Okay, so yeah, I have 3 cards.
Can anyone else see those cards? Okay. So let's try doing it sort of in order. Stephen, would you draw 3 cards into your area? And you can see 3?
I see 3 face up, yes.
Okay. And then Daryl, if you would draw 3. And then finally, Pocket, if you would draw 3. So it's synchronized, but I think if multiple people are doing things, it can't keep up. We will handle the drawing and stuff. Don't do that until we say, and we'll have people do it individually. What I would like everyone to do then is to place your highest card, with ace being the highest, on the table.
Should we do this one at a time as well?
Sherry, put your highest out and flip it face up. And then Stephen, put your highest out. Queen. And then Puckett, put your highest out. And then Daryl, put your highest out. Okay. And hearts trump clubs. So Puckett, we're going to start with you. We're going to have you do the first game. And the first game is actually a set game. I don't have this on one of the tabs because this is kind of a private game that you get to narrate. It's in the PDF. Basically, it is the Dreams and Revelation question. It is a Dreams and Revelation game. And this is kind of a one-on-one. And this is to demonstrate what people can be thinking about if they're not in a scene. So what we do is, for this game, we look at the Nobody's Dreams and Revelation thing. And again, this is not in the tab because it was a little too big to put everything in that. And you're going to make a pick about something that you're going to describe that has happened with Frankie Blair. So If you look at that list, do you see any there that appeal to you and you want to tell us about it?
Hmm.
And you don't have to tell about it yet. Well, I want you to think about it. Think about what has happened. Think about the answer.
Okay.
And then what you're going to tell everybody is what they notice about you that has changed as a result of that. So here's the
Okay.
interesting thing about this game. You don't actually tell us the choices that you've made, but you tell us what we see about those choices.
Okay. I got you.
So what would the others notice then about you in the following days?
You see me looking at Tristan Halliday differently. Like watching him more carefully. Almost like I'm observing him.
Oh, observing. Okay.
Like I'm trying to find something out or see a pattern in behavior.
And then the other thing is, based on these events that you have been part of, what gossip is roaming around? What is everybody hearing?
The gossip is that Tristan has been disappearing for longer and longer intervals of time while he's supposed to be in class.
Daryl, are you good with that as the rumors that are going around about Tristan? All right. So that's Dreams and Revelations, and you can always do that on your own. And if between things you're like, oh, I did it, Dreams and Revelations, I want to say some things about what's gone on. We're going to work now going a standard from there, and we're going to work sort of to the left and then wrap around. So Daryl, we're going to come to Tristan, and you can choose Dreams and Revelations or any one of these questions, these games that don't have asterisks around their names there at the bottom there of the tab. Which one do you want to choose? And we'll kind of walk through the setup of it.
Well, being that I'm on the student council, I'm going to have to choose rising tensions in an elevator.
Okay. So the setup for riding tensions, choose tensions in the elevator. You're going to choose a partner who accompanies you in the elevator. Other players can join in freely if it makes sense during this cryptic or revealing conversation. And we're going to ask about what we've noticed about each other. What have you heard? And then you're going to make some choices about whether the elevator is heading up or down. So who is your partner for this moment in the elevator?
I think it's going to have to be Artemis.
All right. So you are in the elevator with Artemis. And tell me what this elevator looks like, Daryl.
So the elevator itself is, it looks like a bird cage, actually. It's cylindrical in nature, and it freely floats in the shaft. And there's actually a little bit of a gap between where you step off the floor and you step onto the cage. And then when it closes up, you see an elaborate system of chains that pull it up or down depending on which direction you're going. And it's all done in gilt, wrought iron and gilded gold. So it has this very severe black and gold kind of aesthetic to it.
And Stephen, what is the sound when you travel on the elevator? Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it musical?
It's this faint clicking, like the ticking of a watch as the elevator moves up the shaft.
I like that. And Daryl, we've got a couple questions here in the setup. What have you noticed about each other? What have you heard? We'll start with you, and then we'll come over to Artemis.
Okay. The thing I observe about Artemis is that if it's possible for her already precise and starched uniform to appear more precise and starched, then that's what's going on. it seems almost as if even more care and attention is being poured into it to an almost obsessive level.
Have you heard any hints about why that might be?
I've heard that there is a mysterious person who has been coming to observe Artemis in her athletic endeavors, who is not from the school.
And Artemis, what have you noticed about Tristan?
Well, Tristan has been distracted lately, and I'm observing his stance, and like ordinarily I would expect a member of the student council to stand as if they're prepared to enter a duel at any instant, and he's not standing like that.
Ooh, interesting. You two, do you think the elevator is headed up or down? Upwards towards the sanctuary that has the castle, or downwards towards the secret basement with dark secrets?
I think it's going up.
Okay. Are you good with that, Stephen?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to have here is a conversation. This has a set of vague overtures and revealing truths. You're going to perform the person who's going to start is going to perform a vague overture, and then we'll alternate that back and forth. Anytime after the third vague overture, you can choose to reveal a truth instead. And we're going to keep asking those questions back and forth until an answer means that the elevator has reached destination at a critical point. And then you can describe something ominous after that. So which of you two is the more mysterious?
I would think that with my seeming indolence lately, that it would probably be me.
All right, then let's have you begin. Have you begin with a vague overture from the list?
Let's see. It would help if I was looking at the right one. Let's see here. So, and I say, Artemis, let's see. Have you ever thought about, here we go, I got it. Artemis, have you ever given any thought to that old adage of, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
And I look a little puzzled, and I don't understand. That's a ridiculous question. How can there be a sound with nobody to hear it?
I mean, if a song is sung in an empty room, is it ever heard?
If the room is empty, then who is singing?
So, Stephen, do you want to do your vague overture then?
Just Tristan, it's unusual for you to show an interest in such things. You used to be so direct, like all members of the student council.
So I guess out of character, a question I have is like, are we both just speaking in vagaries back and forth, or do we like actually like actively like role play a scene? Or
I think the idea is that these are role playing prompts, so we can kind of respond to them, and then do sort of the next sort of highlight moment. That's how it feels to me. Does that feel right?
Okay.
Okay.
So I think that Tristan kind of like looks to the side and like stares at the like into the darkness outside of the elevator cage and says, well, sometimes there are things that should not be said so directly.
Perhaps, yet in order to change the world, one must move towards a goal. And what direction can one move in but the direction of the goal?
And yet, there are many people who say that the final destination is not the true treasure, but the journey along the way.
Mystics? We are not mystics. Are you perhaps beginning to question your place on the council?
Of course not. The council is where I belong. It's the only way to get to the revolution that I desire.
Well then, perhaps you should remember the behavior that is expected of the council. Surely you do not want to set a bad example for the other students by showing weakness or uncertainty.
Oh, but my dear Artemis, you certainly have all of the strength and certainty for the both of us.
So perhaps we do not need quite so many members on the council as in times past.
Well, that is fortunately not for you to decide.
And I touch my sword, and it is perhaps something that is in my power to decide. Remember that, Tristan.
Thank you so much for that ever-present reminder of my true goal.
Do we think we've moved to another overture, or somebody want to move to the revealing of a truth here? What do you feel like?
I think possibly, so at that point, Tristan like remains silent for a moment, but then looks back at Artemis and says, well then, here's the directness that you so desired. I have heard that there is a book in the library that contains information very important to me, and I would like your help finding it.
A book. And a book that perhaps relates to the end of the world.
Perhaps. It's just a rumor I've heard. But I admit it has consumed me often of late.
I will look for your book, and perhaps I will even share it with you. Perhaps.
He smiles and looks back out into the darkness.
And the elevator arrives, and we'll see that sort of multi-stage of the doors opening. What do you two think is the sort of cryptic symbol or sign that we see that kind of overlays the scene to be the transition after this conversation?
So there's a giant egg-shaped chamber, and there is a crack in it with sunlight streaming through it.
You like that, Daryl? Okay. So we see that as that transition. In Revolutionary Girl Utna, it could be a visual thing, it could be a wipe, it could be creepy dolls saying, have you heard? Have you heard? These are all the things that could happen in that. So that's our first sequence. So we will wrap around to Artemis Winters. Stephen, what game would you like to play?
It's a conversation over food, and Elaine hasn't had a scene yet, so I'll bring her into this.
Okay. Elaine, how is it that you and Artemis came to be eating together? Is it a cafeteria? Is it a cafe? Where are you?
I think that, like everything, Artemis does stuff very precisely. So she has a calendar and she goes and sits with a scheduled student each day, whether they want that or not. And essentially, today on her calendar was Elaine. And I think the notable thing about it is that Artemis was walking sort of all over campus looking for Elaine. If that makes any sense, that you would have to do that.
Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm sort of just a tiny bit disheveled. Like there are a couple hairs out of place, and I'm looking frustrated.
So that's the setup. What we're going to do here is anybody else can join if it makes sense. We're going to ask about what you have noticed about each other, what you've heard, and then anybody can feel free during the thing during this to ask about details of the setting, the occasion, circumstances, and the conversation itself is taken in turns. Elaine has a lower social standing, so she'll begin, and there are some topical questions and likely topics listed there. So what do you notice about Elaine, Artemis?
Notice that she is wearing a flower, a carnation, even though it's winter and there are no carnations growing on the school grounds.
And Elaine?
Is this what I noticed about Artemis, or
what you've heard about Artemis, either one?
I've avoided Artemis because I've avoided her because she is exactly what Elaine is not. She's precise on her social things. She follows through on her obligations, and she will not take no for an answer. So essentially, when this happens, and it's sort of like Elaine has a sort of doomed look in her eye when you finally find her. And I think that the thing that's striking is that while you've come with a tray of beautiful foods that were, produced by the cafeteria for you, for some reason, Elaine has a sack lunch. And so she's sitting at a little table that's sort of outside the library, and that's where you find her. And you put the tray down, and you see the kind of like Elaine's eyes get wide. She'll lean forward and say, "Oh, is today my day?"
Yes, dear. I spoke with you the other day about it. I reminded you. Don't you remember?
And you can tell she doesn't. Her eyes get really big again.
Yeah. And it's like there's on my tray there's this enormous teapot, and there are two china cups. So I'm very carefully pouring tea for both of us and offering it to Elaine. And like I'm dividing some of the dishes I brought in two and serving serving her. It's not. And it's not like I am serving her as subservient. It's like I am the host.
Exactly. And I think she's overwhelmed because she has her sack lunch out, and then you're putting more things on her side of the table, and she's trying to, essentially move it all around. Sh- for a person who's very nimble with her fingers and musically inclined and stuff, she seems completely out of step in this moment. And at some point, she'll sort of stop you and she'll go, um, could, and she sort of stops and says, "That's enough. I couldn't possibly eat all of this."
At least taste it, Elaine. You've been looking vague lately. Like perhaps you haven't been getting enough to eat. We worry about your health, dear.
And she'll kind of look down at her tea and then she'll pick it up and drink it and look over the brim at you. And she'll go, "Why would you worry about me?"
As a member of the student council, every student is my concern. I mean, you can't live on sandwiches alone, Elaine. You must have finer things in life. As a musician, you should understand that. To eat simple, plain food every meal of your life, it would be like living without song. Do you understand?
And she cocks her head and she goes, "I always thought of you as a warrior. Are tea and cakes part of that?"
Oh, no. I'm not a warrior, Elaine. I am a ruler. A ruler must be a warrior when occasion arises. But a ruler must understand every aspect of society.
What do you understand?
I understand some things, and I am here at the academy to learn what I do not understand.
And how do you
There's,
recognize the things you don't understand?
well, because they are things that I do not understand. There's one thing about you I don't understand, Elaine, and I was hoping that I could ask. You're a musician, but you seem to hide your music. You've never performed a recital for the other students. You've never put yourself forward, put yourself on a stage.
And she sort of stops and she goes, "I'm a musician, but I'm not a person." And she sort of stops and she goes, "But I'm not a booker."
You do not a booker?
This guy's, I perform at a concert because I'm invited to perform at a concert. I don't march onto the stage and force myself onto it.
It's not force, but very well. On behalf of the student council, I invite you to perform. Shall we say Friday at 7:30?
And her eyes get really wide, and she stops and she goes, "Where will I be performing?"
In the main concert hall, of course.
Excellent. Certainly. I would very much like to perform.
Wonderful. I will arrange for publicity. I'm sure everyone will be very interested.
We'll see.
Does that feel like scene?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And that's an
Actually,
improvised.
I'm going to say one
yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
When Artemis stands up and leaves, and she goes, I don't care if everyone is there. I just want to make sure you are, Artemis.
So in terms of that game, that sort of improvised conversation, it could have been focused around the sort of the topical questions, things like that, but the improvised question is an option in that. So let's bring ourselves to Ms. Subcheck and
Okay.
have you pick a game.
Oh my goodness. Well, we've been trying all the different ones, sir. And yet I've lost my, sorry. I have to find the thing again. Yikes. Sorry, the way my browser handles these PDFs is weird. Okay. So how about, um, yeah, how about Dreams and Revelations?
Okay. So Dreams and Revelations is one that you look at the things for your faction. You make a choice, and then you're going to tell us what everyone else might notice is from coming from that, and what everyone else has heard.
I think that this is going to be one where I've been studying the volatile relationship of magic and science is the thing. And essentially what you see is she has been following people. You'll see her kind of showing up and watching, and other people see her when she does that. A lot of times it's that the person she's watching doesn't see her until she wants to, but other people see her. And so you will see her sort of watching Artemis, watching Frankie and Tristan. But then what happens is when she's doing that, she'll watch them and follow them probably 2 or 3 places. And then there'll be a point at which she sort of just sits down and she writes some things out. And then she actually pulls her violin out and will play some notes, like that she's distilled something. If that makes any sense. This is essentially her working out some items of power.
And what have people heard about this? What is the story going around the school about this?
The story about it is that, because of course there's the PR for the concert or whatever, is that that she's like writing music for the concert.
Excellent. That will bring us to Puckett. What game do you want to have for Frankie here?
And we are not at a point where we can do any of the ones with asterisks yet, correct?
So the ones with the asterisks would sort of fall out. Particularly Duel with Swords and Hearts would fall out from a conflict, and the other ones sort of need a little more setup. If you want to fight, you can actually fight with meeting sword to sword, but it isn't like a big formal go for the battle against the council kind of thing.
Okay. All right. How about an animated disagreement?
Okay. So an animated disagreement. Let me get to that section here. So this is everybody plays in this one. And you're going to choose a partner. And with them, you're going to decide what the disagreement is about, where you're holding the discussion, who else is present. And we're going to ask about what you've noticed about each other. And then you and your partner are going to state your position, and everyone else is going to take the part of the audience, real or imaginary. And people can ask questions during it, but the audience is going to conduct the discussion, taking turns posing challenges to the position holders. Both position holders must answer each challenge, but you'll get a chance to decide who goes first or let somebody else volunteer.
Gotcha.
So who's your partner for this?
I'm thinking Daryl.
Okay. So for Tristan, what is your disagreement with Tristan?
I think the nature of the disagreement is my skepticism that all of this is real, because Tristan seems like a true believer.
Okay. And Daryl, where is this disagreement happening?
I think that it is happening it's happening in like the observatory, in like twilight. So like the sun is setting and like stars are starting to wink in, but like, and we're like, there's like a telescope that is pointed upwards, but you know, we're not necessarily looking through it at this point.
And how would you state your position, Frankie?
This is silly.
And Tristan, how would you state your position contra that?
So, I'd say oftentimes the things that are the most important are viewed as silly or pointless by the people who don't understand them.
And now, Puckett, you are going to choose either Sherry or Stephen to conduct the first round of this discussion. And they're going to alternate posing challenges to the position holders. And both of you, in turn, have to answer that. You can decide who goes first on that.
Why don't we start with Sherry?
Okay. Sherry, you'll see there's some lists of challenges. So what challenge do you want to put to the two of them?
Well, please explain how your position best serves the neglected interests of the school or students. The neglected interests.
So Puckett, do you want to answer that first or should?
Oh, I will yield to my esteemed colleague.
Okay. Then same question.
The reason that the student body and the other parts of our academy are floundering is because no one has yet been able to attain the power to revolutionize the world. And as soon as that power is attained, then we can institute the positive changes that this place so desperately needs.
And your answer, Frankie?
It always starts with someone demanding more power to serve those who have none to begin with. And yet somehow there's never enough power gathered by that person. And they always, always, always need more, never ceding an iota of it. And yet none of us ever see any of the benefits.
Elaine, would you say who of the two on that particular exchange who had the better argument?
I think that it was definitely Frankie in this.
And what do you think, Artemis? You're muted.
Yeah, I thought Tristan had the better position.
And I'm going to say Tristan, since I'm the tiebreaker in this, is going to take since he is referring to the obvious nature of the physical realm around. So Daryl, you'll take a coin. And which will bring us to the next audience member, which is Stephen. Stephen, what challenge do you want to put?
Please explain how your position carries the weight of tradition, law, and social order.
Who goes first to answer that?
Yes, yeah. Frankie, would you care to begin?
Bearing the weight of law, tradition, and social order? You're talking about a revolution. It has no weight.
On the contrary, revolution has been the thing that has crafted great dynamic changes in history. Think of all the revolutions that we read about in our textbooks. I mean, if you do your homework at least. The word revolution is just laden down with so much history and so much power that it can't help but be transformative and almost transcendental.
Audience members then respond to that. I will give my vote to Frankie on that one. Sherry?
Oh, gosh.
We're putting you in an awkward position, which is deliberate in the game. Just
Yes.
remember that.
Exactly. Tristan.
Yeah, I think Artemis sympathizes with Tristan's position.
So Tristan, you will get a coin there. And then there's a third round of challenge here. Sherry, what's the next thing in this animated disagreement? Let me ask this too. We've seen this conversation, this back and forth in this observatory. What does that look like? What is Tristan's bearing and manner in this back and forth?
Well, he's got that like pretty boy kind of nonchalance. He's probably like arms crossed, like leaning against like a railing or something like that. Like not even looking at Frankie, just kind of like staring off into the distance.
And Frankie, what about you?
Frankie is, I'm not really treating this with the respect that perhaps it should be deserved or that warrants someone of this standing, because I see no validity, no moral or ethical weight to their arguments. Every argument they're putting forward is a self-serving argument. So I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, this is the same nonsense, perhaps wrapped in a prettier coat.
Then we come back to Sherry. Sherry, what is the third challenge in this disagreement? Muted. Take a drink.
It has to be, please explain how the other position has merit and is worth real consideration.
I think we start with Tristan on that.
Tristan like stands up and stretches because he feels like the argument's like almost over, and he's like, well, Frankie, I will say one thing about your argument. Even by my own definition of revolution, it does often involve a new paradigm coming into play and completely changing the game. So maybe you have a point in the fact that things are bound to change. They can't always stay the same.
And I'll grant you the point that you must obtain some amount of power to achieve any kind of revolutionary outcome. The issue is then what someone does with the power, whether they cling to it or whether they relinquish it to the people who need it more.
Stephen, who do you think got the better of that exchange based on the question?
Oh, definitely Tristan. This whole thing about relinquishing power. Why would anyone do that?
And I think Frankie has a good point there, which brings us to Sherry. Muted.
I'm going with Frankie too.
Frankie, you will get a coin. So we compare coins. Who has what coins? 2 and 1.
2 to 1, yeah.
So we know that of the audience, the people that will be watching, we know that Tristan got the upper hand in that. Now we can close that scene out, or if people wish to push the point, we can go to a duel if you think this disagreement has risen to that, or is it more cool?
I think that Tristan would not escalate this to a duel, doesn't see a point in it, because definitely believes wholeheartedly that that's just the way it is. And since it's working in his favor, no need to push it.
Frankie?
I would have had a different answer before that, but since it is working in Tristan's favor and he sees no reason to push it, I think Frankie does.
All right. So with the duel with swords and hearts, we have not already done so. Challenge another swordman. So tell me, how do you phrase that challenge?
I think there's been enough talking. Let's see if your sword play is as good as your word play.
So what we're going to do is we're going to move to this, and we're going to have, if Daryl, if you would draw a card, add it to your set, and then Puckett, if you would draw a card and add it to your set.
Did that reveal?
Yeah, so go ahead and draw another one.
All right.
And so the way this is going to work is much like the others, we have kind of a setup where we're going to kind of set what the dueling arena looks like, what we see. The other players are going to conduct and judge the duel, and anybody can ask questions during this. And then when we open the duel, each duelist is going to answer some of the opening questions, and then we're going to be going through a set of challenges and setbacks.
2 quick questions.
Yes.
Are we supposed to put the original card back into our deck? The one that we
Nope,
displayed?
that is gone. That is
okay.
gone. Yeah.
Right. 2 seconds then. And then the other question I had is that, is it 1 card or 2 cards? It says on the setup, duel with swords and hearts, both of you draw 2 cards.
I think you are right. Let me make sure on the thing to start. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So Puckett, if you would draw another card. All right. So let's get a sense of what this. We know that the elevator goes up to this space up there. The other people are there. Daryl, tell me about this dueling arena.
So the dueling arena is, we're not going to lean too hard into the series. So the dueling arena is actually square, and it is a huge like grid of like black and white tiles. So it looks more like a chessboard.
And Puckett, what is the change in the atmosphere when you enter into the arena?
It almost crackles with electricity. Like there's a thick static charge
Okay.
that's present.
And Daryl, we've got this chessboard. What are the other weird sort of dreamlike things that we see around in the background?
There are scales, and the scales they look like they're even, but they're actually just constantly shifting like back and forth, and like they never come to rest.
And what does that represent, Frankie?
How the student council keeps trying to put their finger on everything to weigh it in their favor.
Nice. Daryl, let's have you walk through those opening questions.
There is a song that announces my arrival. What does it sound like? It is like a harp rhythm. Like it's like the kind of tones that like would be played by a harp, and they start off like slow and kind of like rolling, and then like they get quicker and quicker and quicker as I walk onto into the arena.
Okay. Let's have you go through all those, and then we'll have him go through all of his.
So I enter the arena alone, and there is a sword waiting in my heart, and the sword is just released on its own because of the strength of my will. And it appears from my heart. And then I say something briefly to you before the duels. I say, the balance of power is ever shifting, but sometimes it doesn't. But there will be times when it never shifts in your favor. And then there's a flower on my chest. Cut the flower from the stem and you defeat me. And it is a red rose that has, like at the tips, has gone to like this like orangey gold color.
And the same questions for you, Frankie.
Sorry about that. I was trying to switch tabs and unmute everything. There's a song that announces my arrival. It's Slayer's Raining Blood. And I enter the dueling arena like I come into the world and like I'll leave it, alone. And the sword waiting in my heart is actually a kendo stick, because I don't see that blades have ever helped anyone but cutting the helpless. And what I say to you is that it doesn't matter if it's always in your favor. All anyone ever needs is one chance. All you ever need to do is slip up, and someone won't be there to catch you. And I have a poppy on my chest.
Nice. So how this is going to work is we're going to do 4 exchanges. We're going to alternate back and forth. And when it comes to you, and since you're a challenger, we'll start with you, Frankie. You choose a challenge or a setback. And those have a particular thing and a particular card that you want them to show. If they can show it, they get a point. Otherwise, you get a point. So do you want to start with a challenge or a setback?
I think I want to start with a challenge.
Okay.
And I think something that feels very Frankie is that I rush at you forcing your guard.
Comes charging across. You can show a spade, Daryl, to keep up, and you put that out in the middle. All right. So Daryl will get a point for that. How is it that you keep up?
So Frankie, rushes at me, and I almost set up as if I'm going to like meet her head on, but then at the last moment I faint and like start running the opposite direction, and I kind of almost like wave back at her, so like, all right, keep up.
And then you may choose a challenge or a setback.
I'm going to choose a setback, and it's make me falter and tell me why my desire for revolution is futile. And I look at Frankie and I say, you came into this arena not believing in any of it. Tell me, how are you going to make any kind of positive change when you can't even trust what's right before your face? And so you have to show a spade. Oh wait, I have to show a spade. Oh, okay,
no, they show a spade to do it,
spade.
to make you falter if they can show a spade.
Are setbacks like meant to be
they're meant to be more, they're the same thing as the challenges, but they are more about revealing details. Like you're letting them reveal some details and make some choices there.
All right. That is the 2 of spades.
So how do you respond to that? How do you get the upper hand in that challenge there when Tristan says that?
Because no one who has ever had power has led a revolution that lasted or did anything meaningful. You'd be losing the very thing that you crave the most. You don't know how to lose. For most of us, it's all we've ever done.
Nice. And then a challenge or a setback from you, Frankie.
Well, a question. You mentioned that deuces and jacks have special effects. Is that only at that end of the world?
Only at the end of the world thing.
Okay. I know a secret about who you love. I'll tell you if you show a face card or an ace to regain your composure.
I falter.
So another point to Frankie. What is it? And I think maybe this is for you to say, Tristan. What is it that Frankie is hinting at?
I think that what Frankie does is hints at says something along the lines of, that flamboyance would never impress someone as austere as the one that you look up to.
And Tristan, you have the final challenge or setback here.
Where's the duel? I resort to brute force and attempt to disarm you. Show a club to keep up.
Ooh, nice. Oh. So, what does that look like when you come out swinging, Tristan?
So I think that jab at me about like not impressing the person that I maybe have feelings for is like the thing that just like causes like the first crack that we've seen in Tristan's composure, and then like the regularly reserved atmosphere and like the almost lightheartedness that he's been going through this duel with suddenly like is just like obliterated as this like ferociousness comes out. And there's this like charge of like this like swing that like just like would have like sliced straight through your coat if you hadn't been able to dodge it.
And because it is 3-1, Frankie, you get to say how this duel ends. What is it that how you want that to end?
I sidestep the charge and stick my foot out, tripping you and hitting you once on each shoulder as you fly forward with my kendo stick. Just a tap, not an actual strike. And you basically somersault over. And as you're laying there on your back, I walk over and pluck the flower and say, your tactics are nothing if you can't improvise.
Nice. Daryl, would you draw 2 cards into your area?
Okay.
And Puckett, would you draw 2 cards into your area? All right, I think we're going to take our break here. And when we come back, we'll do another once around, okay? There's me forgetting to turn my camera off.
I'm still here, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I have to remember to actually let people know. So at least
I've
type
gotten
something
used to
in
that.
the
You're
chat.
usually pretty good about doing BRB in the chat.
Yep. I just figured I wouldn't even get up. Moving at this time of morning just seems unnatural.
Yeah, Jamila's running Pasiones
I saw
in February.
at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I looked at that and it's just I would either have to stay up for it, which would mean staying up to 7 a.m. or
that's-
waking up for it.
That is crazy. There's the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock maybe, but 4 o'clock, no.
I just, with my sleep schedule, I can almost always commit to a game that starts at 7 and finishes at 10, or a game that starts at 1 and finishes at 4.
Mm-hmm.
But anything outside that, I mean, I had to set 3 alarms for this morning just to make sure that I didn't sleep through the first 2. So, I mean, I can usually be up between afternoon and evening, but everything else is just a crapshoot, and not in any kind of fun way that's likely to pay off.
All right, we will get Sherry back. There we go.
And 4 sessions. Wow.
I like that game a lot. So we've seen this happen. We've seen the first of our real confrontational duels occur there. We come to another round of games. Again, Daryl, what would you like to do for your game this time?
Well, we haven't had a dance yet.
All right. So we look at that. What you're going to do is you're going to choose a partner, and then we're going to find out how you came to be dancing. The other players can jump in if they want. We'll do that usual notice thing, and then we'll take turns exchanging questions. So, so who is your chosen partner in this scene?
I think that well, Tristan hasn't had a scene with Elaine yet, so I think it'll be Elaine.
Okay. How did that happen?
I think that it was, it's probably at, a reception of some sort, like thrown by the student council. And like, I feel it's probably to celebrate like something that that Artemis did, like another victory at a tournament of some sort, and it's a fate for Artemis, and we just ended up being like taking a turn around the dance floor.
And tell me what this dance looks like, Elaine.
Well, it's a highly stylized waltz, because it's a waltz around essentially Artemis, who has done so well. So it is that fate. And so it's very old school. It's revolutions of circles, essentially that circle around around Artemis in this instance. So, and it's all very precise.
Are you a good dancer, Elaine?
She is very precise.
Is Tristan a good dancer?
Yes, very very elegant.
Then we see you going round. What's the primary color here, Daryl, in the dance? the hall or decorations?
Everything's been done over in like blues and silvers to complement Artemis's color scheme.
And how crowded is the dance floor, Elaine?
Actually, well, the dance floor itself is precisely set up, so it itself isn't crowded, but everyone who isn't dancing is like they've all come up as close to the circle as they can to watch, so it has that feeling of being crowded.
And what we do now is, for the characters that are present, we're going to do an exchange of questions there from that list that we have. So, Daryl, what's your first question off that list?
Well, do we do the what have you noticed? What do you notice
Oh,
about each
yeah,
other?
thank
And
you.
what have you heard?
Absolutely, yes, thank you. So let's start with that.
So the thing that I notice about Elaine is that the the fingertips of her left hand are like almost bruised to indicate that she's been practicing nonstop.
And Elaine, what have you heard about, or what have you noticed about Tristan?
I think what I notice is that he has an envelope in his pocket that's beneath his jacket, and it's sort of thick, and I can see just the letter A on it, like for who it's addressed to.
And what have you heard? What is the rumors going around right now about things, Daryl?
One of the rumors that I've heard is that Artemis's practicing she's started to practice in increasingly odd places. So there's a rumor that last night she was practicing in the burnt out wing of the hospital administrative building. So there was once a nursery that got went up in flames, and they never repaired it. But there's a rumor that Elaine was in there last night playing her sonatas.
And Elaine, what have you heard about Tristan?
I've heard that essentially none of the student council members, the other ones, will be seen with him in the hall lately. They all avoid him and look away.
Excellent. So, Tristan, give us the setup and then ask this question from the list.
So I think that there's like some sort of like order to like how people like come together as partners. And I think that Elaine and Tristan have definitely like danced together before, but are like dancing together quite a bit this evening. And so I think that one of the things that comes up is my question is, my face is close to yours. Do you subtly turn toward me or subtly away?
I think she turns her face like away, but it's mostly so that like when she whispers, it's just past your ear. But she never looks right at you, but she will whisper to you on occasion. The first thing she says is, "Did Artemis tell you to dance with me?"
And in that same manner, I gracefully pull us through a turn, and then almost imperceptibly, like I whisper in your ear, I don't do what Artemis tells me to do.
And then what is your question, Elaine, from the pick?
Oh, you may at this moment in the dance place your hand upon my elbow, my shoulder, my waist, or my hip. What do you choose?
I think that Tristan puts his hand on Elaine's hip, almost as like and it's definitely like in reaction to the question that you had just asked him. He's doing it almost as if to show that like he's not thinking about Artemis at all.
Okay.
And the answer to your question is yes. And the way that works is, you've answered that. Do you want to enter into the dance, Frankie?
I'm thinking of watching Elaine and Tristan dance. I'm just going to grab Artemis by the forearm and stomp out onto the floor in my heavy shoes, which are absolutely not appropriate for dancing.
Artemis, are you cool with setting that up?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to.
I mean, it's a very.
I'm going to make
entertaining.
this. I am going to make this somehow look graceful.
Okay. Then Frankie, when you get rolled into this, what is the question that you wish to put?
And this is putting to Tristan or Elaine, correct?
Well, you're currently dancing with Artemis, so you'll put it to your partner there.
I'm surprised that you aren't jealous of Tristan tonight. But I mean, maybe that was before I defeated him in a duel that you would have been jealous.
And what is your question from the list then?
Oh, the list. Sorry.
That's okay.
At this moment in the dance, you laugh. At what?
Well, at your question, obviously, as Frankie, to see one of my rivals humbled in that way was a pure delight. And something about me catches your eye and your look fingers. What is it?
It's your hair. It makes you look much more mature. Not mature in a way of age, but mature in a way of emotional depth. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And that brings us back to the original players as this twirls around. Tristan, what is your second question? And are you still partnering with Elaine?
I think that, yes, I'm still partnered with Elaine. Okay. And actually, the dance's figures bring you to dance with someone else, whom, and when the dance brings you back to me again, are you pleased or disappointed?
Elaine, muted.
The pattern of it has you always like, sort of as you do a revolution, you dance with that person that you end up next to as the perpendicular to if you're at that position. But then that circle will come around and you join back in your circle. So it's one of the trickier parts of the thing. So I think that actually when I switch for a moment, it leaves you with Frankie and me with Artemis. And we do the revolution, and then I'm back. And when it, yeah, I think when she comes back, she seems relieved, maybe pleased, um, just because Artemis is so stressful, if that makes any sense.
And then what is your second question for Tristan?
Let's see here. Something about me catches your eye and your look lingers. What is it?
I think there's this, it's that moment of relief that you showed, like, and it goes away very quickly, but you do this thing where like you like tuck the hair, like your hand almost comes up like unintentionally and like tucks it back, and like the barest instance of like preening, like the like of wanting to look slightly more polished. And there's this moment where like I see that, and like there's the like the slightest bit of a smile like crosses my lips.
Nice. Frankie, you have one more question. Do you wish to put that to Artemis, or do you want to switch partners?
Go ahead and put it to Artemis because I think it'd be interesting.
Okay.
I lose my place in the dance. Do you let me stumble, or do you draw me back into place?
I think that you stumble, but I help you recover before anybody else notices.
Nice. And then your last question?
You have the opportunity to draw me close and hold me for a moment. Do you take it?
Sure, you're cute.
What's the expression on Artemis's face then? I'm curious about that when that happens.
I think there's a faint blush.
And the music will end, and partners will break into different directions, and I think we move on to the next game. Artemis, I believe it is your choice.
I will take stealing time together and with Frankie.
Okay. So we'll go to stealing time together. So set up for this. You only you and your chosen partners play. Ask them how you two or more came to be stealing time together. And then we're going to decide together whether your liaison is elicited in any way and what might happen if you're discovered. And then we'll ask about what you notice. So go ahead and ask that question to Frankie.
Yeah, Frankie. So how did we come to be stealing time together? Does this happen like directly after the dance, or is this sometime later?
I'm very much the kind of girl who's going to like basically grab your hand and say, let's blow this popsicle stand, and just drag you out the door into the night. I mean, dance schmance.
Right.
There's always time for dancing.
Right. So yeah. So we slip out. We slip out of the dance, and I have a key to some of the classrooms. So we slip into an empty classroom.
How did you get that key?
Well, I mean, I'm on the student council. I have responsibilities.
In teachers'
Uh,
classrooms?
Oh yeah, oh yes.
After hours?
Well, if we need to use a classroom for extra authorized extracurricular activities,
You kind of suggested that it was, not authorized, and you said extra authorized. So you're just kind of pirating this stuff, aren't you? You some kind of student council pirate?
I would say
Making
that
key imprints on bars of soap?
there are certain privileges that come with power.
Yeah, this is why I'm not a fan of power.
Do you think
Not
this?
a fan of being alone when you wish to be alone.
We could be rolling around on the grass and alone.
But then we might be interrupted.
And your point?
My point is that I don't want to be interrupted.
Life is about interruptions. I mean, I interrupted you sitting there in the stands and dragged you out onto the dance floor. That was an interruption.
Dragged. You couldn't have dragged me if I didn't wish to come.
But you were sitting there, not moving until that occurred. An
Yes, but
interruption.
it was a choice.
A choice brought about by an interruption.
By an invitation.
You call it an invitation. I call it an interruption. I'm just using your words to describe the things that you've been doing.
Well, right now, I am inviting you, and I reach out to touch your hand. Do you let me take it?
Yes.
And so that's one of the things we're going to be doing here is continue the conversation. We do three exchanges. That was one of them. Stephen made a choice from the advances, and then we had Frankie answer from the answers, and we continue on with the conversation as you wish from there. You can stop to have details if you want to add in the what you've heard or things like that, but continue on.
You're always so rigid, so stern. I mean, I'm trying to say it politely, and I really can't think of a way to say it. You're always uptight. I mean, you're really tightly wound.
We haven't been alone before.
Well, that's true.
And I think I reach back and I untie my ponytail and I let my hair fall loose.
Oh my God, you've let your hair down. Stop the planet.
And I loosen my jacket.
The scandal.
What? It's no scandal. No breach of decorum. This is
Artemis.
This is what the revolution is.
Artemis, no one's ever teased you before, have they?
Not without consequences.
You mean nobody's ever teased you good-naturedly or playfully when they were actually demonstrating some kind of affection or appreciation for you?
That's not how I was raised.
All that power and all that privilege. And you can't even tell when somebody is being playful with you.
understand playfulness. I simply don't. I haven't been taught to practice it.
Okay. This is something I can definitely help with. I'd like to make a slight modification to one of the questions.
To one of the advances?
Yes.
Okay.
I loosen your clothing. May I?
Yeah, that is actually an unmodified advance, yes.
But in this case, the way that she's going to do it is she's going to grab the collar, which I'm sure is buttoned all the way up, and actually snap a button or two off.
I think my instinct is to grab your wrists and hold them when you try to do that, and then like I loosen my grasp, but not completely, so that it's as if we're unfastening the button together.
Slide my fingernail underneath it and just pop it right off the thread. It goes flying away. Your little tink as it hits across the classroom. Oops. I wonder how that happened. And I wink at you.
Like I think I slide my hand down my buttons, popping them off one by one. I mean, may I?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Now, Lowell,
Yeah.
have we, I feel like we're getting kind of close to a veil moment.
Yeah, you hit the three exchanges there. If we
Okay.
want to draw a curtain on that, we can certainly do that. Are you both good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Right.
It feels
I mean,
good.
if Stephen wants to say something else, I'm fine with that. But it feels like it's drawing close to a veil moment.
Absolutely.
All right. Can we close with a kiss?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So kiss and fade to black.
Okay.
But I really like that detail about you popping the rest of the buttons off. That was nice. That was good.
Elaine, I believe it is your turn.
Conversation over food. While all this is going on, we go for punch.
All right. So conversation over food. So we come to that setup. We see how you've come to be eating together by the punch stand. What do you notice about each other?
I noticed that his attention is, that he's looking for Artemis.
The thing I notice about Elaine is that she seems much more like intently focused on the present moment than usual. She's usually like kind of off in her own world, but she's very present right now near me.
And then we take turns with the topical questions.
Okay. Let's see here. I got to find them because I'm the worst at scrolling.
Okay.
What page is this on?
It's on conversation over food, the tab.
It's a tab? Okay.
Oh yeah, I've got all these things in the tabs.
Oh my God.
Have you been
I'm
scrolling
using
through the PDF?
Yes. I'm an idiot. Okay. Awesome. Conversation over food. Okay, good. Topical questions.
Yeah. And you can ask a question, engage in a conversation, pass, or leave the conversation when it's just sort of your exchange.
All right. I think you get the sense that because she is in the moment, you could say she's feeling generous. What favor would you ask of her?
I think that do you make any kind of like gesture that you're like inviting this, or is it something that I'm just kind of like spontaneously asking you?
I think that it is like that, you know, you've given her some punch, and she actually kind of looks up at you and she says, "This is fun." Like her eyes are sort of wide at the idea that she's enjoying herself. So I guess it's an invitation, but it's not. But yes, there's an opening. You can ask her for something.
I say, I see like the actual like moment of like you're excited about this like moment. I'm like, but I often see you taking tea with Artemis. Is that not enjoyable? It seems like you would usually have fun with her.
And she kind of stops and she goes, "I think you are very brave. I'm not as brave." She goes, "Do you want to have lunch with Artemis?"
I think that Tristan looks away for a moment and says, "You know, in all the time that I've been on the student council, I don't believe we've ever shared a meal. I don't believe I've ever seen Artemis eat, actually."
And aren't you on her calendar?
No, I seem to have fallen out of her planner.
I have something that could put you back on her planner, but it might not be good because then you couldn't use it yourself.
And I look at you and it's like, Elaine, my curiosity is piqued.
And she'll kind of open one of those little purses, the tiny ones that women carry, you know, for these things that have the long strap and Spencer. And she pulls out a card from the library, one of those that was in the book catalog. She goes, "I think this is what you were looking for."
And I like my eyes light on it and they grow wide for a moment, but then my usual look of composure takes over again. And I take the card from you and I say thank you. And I tuck it into my coat pocket next to that letter that you spotted earlier.
She goes, "Remember, it won't get you to the end of the world now."
And I kind of look away and I say, "My, these cucumber sandwiches are delicious, aren't they?"
They really are. Okay.
Does it feel like scene?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let us move on to Frankie. Frankie, what would you like to do for your game?
All righty. How about this is how about meeting?
Yeah, it's a like a play, like you just kind of practice dueling. You're not actually up in the dueling arena. You are down there if you want to do the meeting sword to sword.
Because Elaine and I haven't had a scene yet, and we haven't done meeting sword to sword. So I'm just looking at the ones that we haven't done, trying to look through stuff that we haven't actually played yet.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that, Sherry?
Sure. I don't
Okay.
think we've seen Elaine as a combatant yet.
How has it come for you two that you've come to be in this duel? Was there a disagreement and now you're just resolving that, or is it a practice duel, or how do you think that came to be?
I feel like it's almost like fencing practice, like for PE or something like that.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the
we've
emotion.
got those short shorts on, and the loose t-shirt, and the
Yeah.
Keds and short socks. Yeah, sure.
Then let's ask, what do you notice about each other, and then what have you heard? Frankie?
What I notice is that her form is impeccable. Like she has been not just trained, but elegantly trained. Like her form with a sword is like the way that she plays music. It's graceful beyond description, almost like it kind of defines a platonic ideal of how that motion occurs. Like it's so perfect that it almost seems like it's too perfect. You know, like when you're watching something in like, 64 frames per second or something like that.
And Elaine?
Frankie is all raw power and rough edges and bluster and 100% Frankie all the time. And it's like classical music versus the rawest punk in that way. And it's not that they don't share some qualities. It's just that there's, in that immediate moment, they look like there's nothing in common. It'll take some time for them to figure out even how to engage.
So we move to the leading questions. Which of you two is the better swords person? Who starts this?
I'm probably the better swords person.
There's no question about that. You are absolutely the better swords person.
Then what is your leading question from the list there, Elaine?
I think that I make a thrust at you and you barely turn it, a fraction slower than you've been cut through. Does that exhilarate you or chill you? It's an incredibly aggressive move right off the bat.
I'm exhilarated. And I think you actually just kind of stop. It's like, yes, I managed to dodge that. I mean, you're one of the best in the school, and I managed to dodge that.
Yeah, and she nods at you, and she's like, that's because you know yourself. That's a strength, but you have some weaknesses too. She'll step back.
And then Frankie?
I overreach slightly, and you have an opportunity to slip in a dirty little cut. Do you take it?
I think she does, and I think that she does take the dirty little cut, but it's not a cut of your skin or anything. She actually, like the tip of her knife comes down, or her sword comes down, and she essentially cuts your sock, like so that it like falls down and is just like it's not on your ankle anymore. It's sort of it's just falling completely to the ground, and it's hanging there looking really goofy.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways, she's made a mark. Doesn't hurt you.
Not physically.
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
right
very
next to your
much
skin. Yeah.
it's very much a warning. Got you.
and
She's
then your
it's
choice.
Okay. My choice. So we just do this one more time, or
No, we do it until you go to a closing question.
Okay. We circle. Sword tips touching. What do you say to me?
You're even better at this than I'd heard. And I had already heard that you were, if not the best in this school, certainly among the best. I've never seen anyone with your skill before, much less actually crossed swords with anyone with your level of skill.
She kind of stops and goes, there are plenty of people better than me. There are lots of people better than you. You have
You
to know what
think
your strength is.
you say that, but I think that the bow and the sword are closer than you actually understand.
She turns around, she goes, oh no, I've lost. I'm just looking to see if you can ever win.
Come back to you, Frankie. Do you wish to go for a closing question or another leading question?
I catch your wrist in my hand and draw you close to me. Do you let your sword drop, or do you shove me away and fight on?
She shoves you away. And she goes, you can't get away with this just because of your personality. You've got to bring skill and personality to bear.
Elaine, a leading question or a closing question?
Let's see here. I get my sword point high up under your chin. Do you submit or flee?
You are muted.
I'll wink and tip my hat. Like, obviously I can't really like nod my head, but it's like, okay, you got me.
She goes, what do you care about, Frankie?
Care about leveling all the playing fields. Not just the ones where polo ponies prance or people play rugby or lacrosse.
She goes, even the people that play polo are thinking bigger picture than that. Got to learn who to give credit for what. You can do it, Frankie. But you got to see your foes for who they really are.
I try not to think of them as foes at all. I know I'm wrong. That's not any revolution I want to be part of.
Think scene, or do you have some? Okay.
I think what you see is Elaine's eyebrows go up, and she kind of gives a shrug and steps back.
So I don't think we have quite time for another once around, but I think before we go to the end game, we should give everybody a chance to kind of describe the lead up to that, something we see about them in an individual scene, maybe something that's revelatory about them. Does that seem like a fair way to handle that? So let's start. We know that the end game is coming. I don't know if there's a letter that will arrive at the end of each of these sequences or what, but before that, what is the scene we see of Tristan? What are they doing before this?
So the scene is taking place at the library. He's looking, he's walking through the stacks, and it's very like architecture, like incredibly tall bookshelves and like multiple stories. And he's like weaving in and out of the stacks, looking at the card that Elaine had given him. And finally he stops in like a shelf of books, and then on the left there's like a single book standing in the middle of an empty shelf, and he pulls it, and it turns out that it's Artemis's diary, and he like flips it open, and then right in the middle there's a diary entry that details everything that happened between her and Frankie, and the bookmark that was holding that page is a letter with the crest of End of the World.
Oh, nice. Artemis, what is it that we see of you before this? You're muted.
So there's a scene of Frankie and Artemis. We are in the practice room. We're dueling. We are both, neither of us is in a school uniform. We are both wearing formal ball gowns, and our swords are clashing, and we're drawing very close to each other. There's no actual physical contact, but we clearly, our attention is completely focused on each other.
That actually makes sense to move to Frankie then. Frankie, what is this that we see before we move to this end game we see of you?
I'm sitting on the roof of the school, holding a handwritten letter and crying. It's obvious I've just gotten some bad news.
And Elaine? You're muted.
I think it's the concert, and she's playing, and you can kind of see as she's playing, there's the audience, and it's all the dark figures, and then she'll see really bright in the color of essentially a dark figure stand up, but she can see the rose on his lapel. It's red with the orangey gold. And the figure walks out of the concert very purposefully. And she keeps on playing. She plays a little refrain that you've heard before whenever Tristan is on the thing. She plays that. That's as if it's part of what she's playing, just so that it follows him out. And you see another person stand up, another figure, and you see Artemis's rose. It was a rose, yes. And it's white and a little bit of gray still to it, like it shines like metal. And she leaves. She plays that refrain. And then the last one, figure, Poppy, stands up. She plays that last refrain, all that you've heard with them. And then all of the pages of music that are on her stand sort of blow away. And she reaches down to one of the pages that has fallen, but it's actually a letter. She picks it up. She just walks off the stage with it.
All right, so we are going to go to the end game. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to call for everybody to draw a card. We'll do that in order here in just a second. And then after that, you will have the opportunity to give a face down card to someone else from your stuff. And I'll talk about what this is going to mean. What we're going to do once we have our cards, we're going to find the player with the most faced cards, and that's going to be the swords chosen. And in the case of a tie, it's going to go the highest card. Of the other players, we're going to find the player with the most suits represented in their hands. In the case of the tie, all tying players become the revealed deity. And then we're going to find players holding twos or jacks, if any, and those are going to be revolution cards. They're going to change things up a little. So in the order that we just did things, Daryl, would you draw a card into your area? And then Stephen, would you draw a card into your area? And then Frankie, would you draw a card into your area? And then Elaine, would you draw a card into your area? Let me ask this. Daryl, do you wish to hand a card to another player?
No.
Stephen, do you wish to hand a card to another player? You muted.
Yeah, I'll pass a card to Frankie.
Okay, so what you'll do is you'll pull one of your cards out on the table and it should show face down. And now, Frankie, will you take that card into your area? Frankie, do you wish to pass a card to another player?
Yes, I'm going to, because otherwise I have to discard one anyway.
Right.
So I drag it from my stack to the center of the table, correct?
Yeah, and it should be face down.
Okay.
And then who does it go to?
Stephen.
Stephen, would you please take that card? And then lastly, Elaine, do you wish to pass a card to another player? You muted. You muted.
No.
Okay. In that case, if everyone, let's start with Daryl. Daryl, if you would put your cards out and kind of put them together in a stack and flip them all face up.
Okay, I have 5 cards, so.
Okay. And then Stephen, would you do the same above that? And then Frankie, would you do the same above that? And then Sherry, would you do that in the space sort of left there? All right. So the most face cards is Elaine, who is going to be the Swords Chosen. And then who has the most suits revealed?
What
Three of
looks
us are
like
tied at 3.
Okay, so all of you are the revealed deity.
Here's the thing is they all 3 are. I'm not. I only have 2 suits.
Right, but you're the Swords Chosen, so you're not.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so here's what it's going to do is the Swords Chosen and is going to answer the questions that are listed there in the end game. And then we will ask the revealed deity to choose things about the revelation for themselves. And then we will look at the revolution cards, the twos and the jacks that are on there. And those owners of those cards will get to say something. So we start with the Swords Chosen. Tell us what this looks like. How we've seen the 4 of you. We've seen the dueling arena. We've seen the scales. Are the scales the same? Have they changed?
That's a good question. I think that's Frankie needs to answer that.
Frankie, have the scales changed in the dueling arena?
Yeah, I think at this point, the scales look more even and more balanced. They're not swaying back and forth as much as they had been in the past. It's not tipping from one side. It's pretty steady at this point, or at least at this moment.
And Daryl, what does the castle look like? We've alluded to there being a castle in the sky. What does our castle look like?
I think that our castle is the castle has taken on the qualities most like the swords chosen, and so the parapets are all gilded with work like gilding that makes it look like music scrolls, and there's a symphony, like the sounds of a symphony, like lilting down from it as it gets brighter and more like the dawn.
And Stephen, what other features have changed about the dueling arena? What's another accent or thing that has been added to this sort of final scene?
Like, it's the dueling arena. It's sort of split apart. Like there was a chessboard, and now each of the chess spaces is drifting away from the other spaces, and it's like floating in a void. So you could still jump between them, but
the world is cracking like the egg that you described earlier. Okay. Swords chosen. We've got 3 questions for you to answer and to tell us, to describe what goes on here.
Let's see here. What is the nature of my transformation?
Yep.
Okay, so I think that essentially what it is you see a light, and she isn't carrying her violin any longer. Instead, she has the conductor's baton. And her gown is more like a tuxedo. It has the long tails, but they go, but they're extravagant and flow like a train of a gown. So, and how does my revolution change the world? And I think what it is that it, gosh, that is such a fabulous question. How does the revolution? I think it's that everyone, there's a sort of thing of everyone looks left, everyone looks right. They see the people that are next to them, and for 1 second, they understand that they aren't alone, that they do these things with people, and that it is what they do with each other that's the most important thing, that how they relate to each other, like an orchestra all playing together. It is the sum of their actions and how they cooperate that builds the world.
How is the one you love changed for the better?
It's a good question. I think that the pain in Tristan's heart, he understands that this moment isn't the only moment and that he has all the moments ahead for whatever it is that he wants.
So by show of by A's. So which of you three witnessed this transformation, or is anyone not present at this scene? Um, uh, do any of you do you change along with the world? What do you think, Artemis?
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, I think I change in that I become more ordinary. It's like I've fallen truly in love with Frankie, and it's like I've given up my ambition to rule everything, and now I just want to be a part of the world.
And Frankie, do you change along with the world? Do you still love someone?
I was already pretty much there with that revolution, so I probably change a little bit. Like I'm probably a little less. How to put this? Probably a little less snooty in my attitudes about people with power and privilege, but otherwise pretty much the same. And yeah, absolutely, I'm still in love.
And what about you then, Tristan?
So Tristan witnesses the transformation and is changed in the world. He does not still love Artemis. The change that he has borne out is that he realizes that there are still stories to tell, and they will be played by different parts, by different people in different parts.
Excellent. Stephen, we're going to start with you with the real deity questions. Did you know you were a deity all along, or had you forgotten?
And I think I had forgotten.
And would you return to being a student, ascend and leave this place, or fall in love truly and leave behind your divinity?
Fall in love truly and leave behind my divinity.
And Frankie, did you know all along, or had you forgotten?
I've totally forgotten.
And what would you choose?
Let's see. Oh, please. What did he need with godhood anyway? Love's better.
And what about you, Tristan? Did you know all along, or had you forgotten as well?
Tristan knew all along. And Tristan chooses to return to being a student and dream in the school grounds. And he starts everything all over again, looking for his next person.
And are swords chosen? Do you leave the deity be, or do you compromise or support them? Muted.
Yes, she loves him and she knows that that's what he has to do. So she supports him. What do you say? But she understands he has to go on to find another true love and to give all the sacrifices for that. That's his role.
Let us look at the revolution cards. We've got several of them out on the table here, actually. Who had the Two of Hearts there? Oh,
that's me.
True love blooms between two or more people. And what awaits them when they leave the school?
Well, obviously, Frankie and Artemis graduate from the academy and go on to the outside world. And they find, I think that they actually end up finding happiness through doing like positive change in the world, like in whatever ways that is. Perhaps Artemis goes on to politics, or they get involved with some sort of like organizing or such. But they're the intensities that they felt as students are personified through the work that they do once they've graduated.
Excellent. And we'll come back around. Who had the Jack of Clubs? Do you wish to play that?
I don't know. What does it do?
Shaka Club, a student appears claiming to be the previous swords chosen. What demands do they make? You can choose to play that or not.
Yeah, they show up and they demand a duel with Elaine and the previous swords chosen. And that is sort of what starts the school up again.
And then who had the two of diamonds?
That would be me.
The school and the castle changes drastically, taking on a new shape. What does it look like now? Do you wish to play that?
Oh, absolutely.
So tell us what it looks like now.
It's a vastly more level school. The way that I had imagined it was that it was like a stone castle, like, the kind of 1700s private school or upper crust school that's been around for a few centuries. Now it looks like your average one-story Southern California high school. If you've seen brick, that's exactly the kind of high school I'm talking about, where it's open, there's airways, everybody's on the same level. There's no higher classrooms. And there might be stairs to get down a hill, but it certainly doesn't indicate anything about the position of the building or the people in it.
And last but not least, we have the Jack of Hearts, Daryl, which is someone appears calling themselves a sword bride. Who do they choose to be the savior? Do you wish to play that?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this mysterious man appears, and at this, like, it's literally this previous swords chosen arrives with this sword bride, and but instead of it seems almost as if this person came here to like stand in direct opposition to this previous swords chosen, and that they're playing their own game, and that they've chosen to use Tristan's chessboard to do it. And they choose Elaine as their savior.
I like that. Especially I like the idea of you with a chessboard as sort of the final shot there in some ways for Tristan. Thank you all very much. That is Take My Revolution. This is a Sword Queen game by Jamila. If you're still watching this, I'll put the link to this in the show notes. Would you guys mind doing a quick swords and wishes, or wishes and I don't know what we call it at this point. I'm so confused. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Stephen, anything you want to say? Wishes or stars?
Just that it felt a little abbreviated. Like this would have worked better as a two-shot, and maybe with one or two more players, because it felt like there was not quite enough choice of who to interact with.
Yeah, it's a 3 to 5 player. I went with 4 because I'm so used to it, but I think you're right. Doing it 5, giving it enough space to breathe, and doing it in 2 sessions, I think would make it stronger. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Anything else you want to say?
Just that my character ended up going in a different direction than I expected. But it was like okay, this is what's happening. Just lean into it.
That makes sense. Anything stars you want to throw out?
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely stars to Frankie for basically initiating that whole shift in my character arc. And yeah, I mean, stars to Elaine for like challenging me in the dinner conversation, and I mean stars to Tristan for challenging me in the elevator. I mean, everybody was pushing on my character in interesting ways. So.
Puckett, wishes and stars.
Well, I agree with what Steven said about needing, it feels like it needs a few more people. Like it feels like it would really benefit for everyone to have someone else in their faction that they can bounce ideas off of or interact with, as well as people of other factions. Because it felt like a lot of the time when I was looking at the nobodies lists, it's like, well, all of this stuff or a lot of this requires another nobody to actually really do. So without that, it kind of, it feels like it limits in some ways what you have available to you as a player to move. But beyond that, I really enjoyed it. You know, I had some concerns about the card mechanic, and I emailed you about it about a week ago. Besides that minor hiccup at the beginning that you quickly sorted out, that worked fantastically well.
I'm
So
shocked
I really,
that it worked.
you and me both. But, you know, in terms of stars, Sherry, Daryl, this is the first time I've played with each of you. Wow. Daryl, you really, really nailed the kind of reserved, privileged, upper crust, better than you, but how do you say it? Noblesse oblige.
Oblige.
Yeah, oblige. That kind of, I'm going to serve, but only because the peasants need someone to watch over them and ensure that they are doing the right things. You really, really nailed that, and I hated it, but like as a character, I hated it. As a player, it was so good, so perfect. And Sherry, I had so much fun in our scene, and I'd just like to point out that you were in fact the best. So, you know, I was right, just saying it. Steven, again, you know, you and I have played together quite a bit over the last year. I love how you keep coming up with new characters. I love how you keep pushing them and allowing them to be pushed in interesting and different ways. It's always a pleasure to play with you. And Lowell, fantastic jamming as always. Thanks for keeping us on track.
Yeah, this is super fun. Sherry, stars and wishes.
Okay, so stars. I've played with Daryl before, and Daryl, you, like as you said, you did this role perfectly well, but you also always have that sort of heart underneath it that I super love to get pulled out towards the end. So the best. And Stephen, you do play the greatest breadth of characters, and I just really enjoyed this one. You were perfect as super uptight and super certain Artemis. And Puckett, I hadn't played with you, and you were out there and 100% Frankie, and it was awesome. It was exactly what the game needed, and it was fun to play against. A lot of fun. And I gotta say, for the game, I have to talk about it. Really, you guys and the game really brought the Revolutionary Princess vibe, and that's pretty neat. I didn't expect it. I'm still come from whenever someone talks about a game, my brain flips to the trad version of stats and skills. And so this was always, when I see these things, I'm like, oh, it's a revelation again, because my brain still goes back to the trad thing. And this is just perfect. It asks all the right questions. It puts you into the right kinds of scenes. Your reactions are, it was just, yep, it's like a perfect analysis of the elements of the show.
It is a game that shows how much the designer loves, understands, and appreciates the source material.
Exactly. It is like it's perfectly broken down. I just love it. Just reading it tells you a lot that you would want to, like if I want to go back and rewatch it, I'm going to watch it a lot smarter than I did before.
Daryl, I'm going to give you last word.
So I'll start off with the player stuff. So I've played with everybody at the table except Puckett, and I was really excited to play with Puckett actually because his reputation precedes him, and you did not disappoint. It was like Frankie was the one who like just pushed this story forward, like full stop. You were the Utana of this story, like 100%. And you did it in such a great way, and you like really pushed and challenged like everybody that you interacted with. And then of course I've played with Stephen and Sherry and Lowell before, and I really appreciate all that y'all bring to your characters. Elaine was like the perfect balance of like mysterious and heartfelt, like the perfect like anti-anthe. I'm gonna of course compare everything to like the actual series because I adore the series, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then Artemis was great because it was basically like all of the best slash worst parts of like Toga and Jory like crammed together. And so that was like perfect. And then like Lowell, you didn't get to like play in this one, so but I think that you did like a really great job facilitating, because I've never played like The King is Dead, and I've had this game like for a long time, and I've read through it multiple times, and I've still like never grokked it. So I'm really glad that you made it like simple and understandable to do, and I really appreciate that. And as for the game itself, like Utana is near and dear to my heart. Like I've been shelling out money for like every edition that comes out. I have like the signet rings, which I've been wearing throughout the game, and like I adore this series. And so my expectations were super high, and I think that this game did like amazing things to like capture like the feel and the vibe and like the structure of the story. It pushes you in interesting ways to make you get at like that like abstract aspects of the anime, which I think are really hard to catch if you, especially if you're not like really familiar with the source material. And I think it did a great job of making that accessible to like people who maybe are not as familiar with it. For wishes, I think that I agree with everybody's statements about like I'd have loved a little bit more time. I think that we may have been able to solve some of those like very quick like triangle problems if we'd introduced a couple of NPCs or something like that. Like because for instance, like there's like the Black Rose duelists, for instance, would have been like really great like NPCs to bounce off of if we'd had more time to do that. And then I guess one more wish is that I get that the structure of this is specifically supposed to be for these like very tightly focused scenes, but I think that there were certain points where maybe I just wasn't quite grokking it, or I felt like I wanted to do more than the prompts were allowing me to. And so I think that if I ran this, I would probably use these like as like jumping off points and like certain things, but I'd probably try to like flesh it out a little bit more for like more of that like role playing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's in there, and I think I may have been running it a little tight because of the time. But yeah, I agree. They feel like great jumping off points, but they have room to be more open. I think you're right. I had a great time. I'm so glad I just so pleased that we got a chance to play this with such a great group of players, and just super excited. So I am going to stop the recording here. I can find the thing that stops it.